look at this building. Tallest building in the world for a while. And I'm going to tell you something super crazy about it. But that's not till closer to the end of this video. So, I just want you to know I am not putting the thumbnail out there for nothing. I always try to make my thumbnails are, they're authentic, both of them, and the ones I put on my YouTube channel. So, without belaboring the point, stick with me on this one. The juice is there, and this part's at the end. So we'll get to it. But first, I had been thinking about the fake news, and I was kind of going back in my mind, like, how long has it been fake? All right. So I decided to just kind of pick a random news broadcast from the distant past, because I wanted to see if it was like how I remembered it. And I went back probably farther than I needed to, but also of the things familiar. I have a distinct memory of watching the evening news like in the 90s, because my dad watched the evening news a lot, and so I'd watch cartoons somewhere around between like Thundercats, Mask, and Silverhawks. Somewhere in there was the evening news. The TV would get switched. So I saw a lot of the evening news, and I have a distinct memory of like the news broadcasts where they would have like an expert come on from some institute, and now I realize that it's just an actor, and they probably have the same actors playing experts and witnesses and stuff like that all the time, and so they put them in disguises so you don't recognize them. And because I had this thing where I was like complaining about how it's ridiculous that they always have like a bearded expert with glasses, so he's got the beard and the glasses all the time, and the guy doesn't need glasses. It's not a real beard, it's a fake beard. He's got a fake nose. The disguises always add, they don't take away from the face. So but oddly enough, it was kind of hard for me to find an example, but I thought, well, there have to be times where these actors that they hire to do the news broadcasts, some of them might be amateurish or whatever, and it becomes too obvious, and then they have to explain it away. So here I'm going to do, there's a globe. So I'm going to do commentary over a news broadcast from 1981, October the 3rd, 1981. Always globe, mind control, programming.
From around the world and from our newsroom in Washington,
All
this is
the
CBS Evening News with
Get
Bob
ready
Schieffer.
to see BS.
Good evening. Keeping up with the debate over defense strategy has never been easy, but tonight it appears to have been turned upside down as President Reagan unveiled his new nuclear strategy yesterday. The Republican chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, John Tower, said it represented less than Jimmy Carter had proposed. Well, today the hardliners were siding with Tower, while some compliments for the Reagan plan came from longtime defense doves. The sticking point, the president's decision to put the new MX missile in the underground silos that during the campaign, Mr. Reagan called vulnerable to surprise attack. More from Jim McManus.
Vulnerable?
To support his decision to scrap the massive MX shell game basing plan, the president employed arguments advanced by some of the severest critics of an expensive new generation of nuclear missiles. And in that one stroke, Mr. Reagan stood the strategic nuclear debate on its head. Defense doves who were appalled when Ronald Reagan made it to the White House are delighted, giving Defense Secretary Weinberger credit for finding the least costly solution to a problem they insist never existed.
Yeah,
I think that Secretary
problem that
Weinberger
never existed
must have looked at the list of needs and figured, okay, we've got to make some tough choices now. So rather than pouring $50, $75 billion into an unworkable solution to a non-existent vulnerability problem, I think he's come up with a sound program, which leaves him funds that he can utilize
Yeah, sound program.
Such things as our
hot air
deployment
bullshit
force
sound
capability.
The hawks, including heavyweight Democrats on Capitol Hill, who were counting on Mr. Reagan to challenge the Soviet military buildup across the board, are spoiling for a fight.
The basic problem that we face is the vulnerability of our Titan and Minuteman missiles.
What?
What we're doing now is to put a bigger missile in a smaller missile hole, so it becomes a bigger target.
That's like what you do on Friday nights, Saturday nights.
Discovery that relates to hardening of the sites that has not been revealed.
Bigger missile and
we will
smaller
certainly be
missile
asking
hole.
questions about that, but right now I'd have to be put down as very skeptical.
The President and Secretary Weinberger argue that the MX decision is part of a broad nuclear strategy, but critics see it as a sharp and confusing reversal of defense policy based on the administration's public arguments with itself.
I would feel that simply putting it into the existing answer two or three of the concerns that I have, namely that these are well known and are not hardened sufficiently to be, nor could they be, to be of sufficient strategic value to or count as a strategic improvement of our forces. The silos into which those will be put, the MX as they come off the line, will be hardened silos.
Pentagon sources question whether the Joint Chiefs of Staff will support the new plan wholeheartedly, at least until they see how the political winds blow in next week's congressional hearings on the Reagan nuclear strategy.
That guy's in front
Jim
of
McManus, CBS News, Washington.
There were also mixed reviews today from Tucson, Arizona, where some of the first new missiles will be based.
Is it a movie?
Dow has that.
Nearly 20 years ago, when the first 18 Titan missiles were installed in silos outside Tucson, Arizona, it caused little stir in the area. Many welcomed the economic stimulus, the chance to contribute to the nation's Cold War defenses. But Tucson has tripled in size since then, its suburbs sprawling ever closer to once remote missile sites 25 to 60 miles away.
25 to 60
new communities
miles
have sprouted
away.
next to two of the sites, and the possibility of having a new generation of missiles at some of these sites produces mixed feelings.
Hopefully.
I think it's a very frightening thing and something that I think everybody in this area should become very concerned about. It certainly makes us a target area.
A target? Nobody can reach you.
And why would the
missiles only go about 100 miles?
Make it any more of
maybe 200 to 300 miles.
Arizona's aging Titan sites have become more visible in the public mind since last year's accident at a silo in Arkansas and a minor accident at a site near Tucson. Some see the solid fuel MX as a welcome substitute.
If they're going to replace missiles, MX is a good one. It doesn't have that fuel leakage problems. It's brand new, and we really we look at that as a positive situation rather than keep these aging missiles around and keep the community a little upset about that.
But Tucson's Democratic Congressman Morris Udall thinks there's a better alternative for his district: no missiles at all.
I'd rather they put them somewhere else. They are supposed to be in rural areas, so that it's just a military target and not a
military target,
civilian target as well.
Nobody can reach it.
I react that we've done our share.
The prospect of more jobs at Tucson's Davis-Monthan Air Force Base doesn't carry the economic clout it once did. This is no longer a one-industry city, and though the president is popular among Arizonans, he would still face a sales job, though perhaps a successful one, in convincing residents to live with the MX and at least tolerate it. David Dow, CBS News, Tucson.
$50 to $75 billion.
While attention was being focused on nuclear weapons today and high-speed delivery, some U.S. troops were training for conventional low-speed warfare. The military held a mobilization and deployment exercise today, starting at Camp Blanding in northeast Florida. It was a joint Army Reserve National Guard exercise. 4 hours and 15 minutes later, they all rolled into the port of Jacksonville, and the trip ended. But in war, that would have been the beginning of a journey overseas.
Why? Go pound on Middle Easterners who didn't do anything to you?
Arthritis, pain, or its stiffness stop me. So I turn to the warming power of Bengay. Bengay warming power works fast. I rub in Bengay and feel that good old warming power deep, right where it hurts, breaking up pain and its stiffness for hours of relief.
No wonder Bengay's America's #1 selling arthritis rub. It's got warming power.
When arthritis pain grips you, break the grip of pain with Bengay.
Okay. Fake
Tomorrow
space.
Proudly presents the Canon A1. The A1. The camera that takes you to the outer limits of your imagination. The A1. So ahead of its time. It's designed with 5 automatic exposure modes plus manual. Versatility to capture your most creative compositions. The Canon A1. Precise, effortless. The Canon A1. Now the possibilities
They actually
are
got a tiger to jump through a flaming ring? Wow.
Still another complication is developed in the administration's plan to sell AWACS radar planes to Saudi Arabia. Earlier, there were efforts to overcome Senate opposition to the sale by placing the planes under joint command of U.S. and Saudi pilots, but the Saudis turned that down. Tonight, the Saudis say they will accept no American partnership in operating the planes.
The Saudi flag looks like
hunger strike camp. They broke ground in San Diego today for a big new Navy hospital, a hospital that a lot of city residents claim is the wrong size and the wrong place. Terry Drinkwater has that story.
Drinkwater.
The Navy brass turned out for today's groundbreaking ceremony. The band played on, but it had to compete with demonstrators who'd been kept on the other side of the fence.
What did they tear down?
They and many other San Diegans don't want.
So it turns out that Balboa Park is the site of the San Diego Exposition of 1915.
The biggest hospital the U.S. military has ever planned to be built here in their Balboa Park. They argue it would bring traffic and crowding. Would New Yorkers want a $300 million complex of government buildings in their Central Park? Only the animals in Balboa's famed zoo seem oblivious to the controversy. The Navy shows off architects' drawings and argues most of the hospital will be hidden by trees. Sections of the old hospital on an adjacent park site are 1920s vintage. No one disputes it's time to build a modern hospital. But why not on the edge of town, on this parcel of land the city offered? No, says the Navy, we want the new buildings to be next to this existing facility, which won't be demolished.
In the event
Hospitals
of a conflict,
are so
we always
bad.
have to
I mean,
prepare for it. That particular facility is a major expansion facility.
You're lucky to get out of a hospital
casualties in time
one
of
piece.
Crisis, time of war.
The Navy emphasizes it will give much of the old hospital property back to the city, though they'll keep the admirals' houses with their commanding views. The oldest parts of the hospital are already being torn down to make way for the new. But the project may still be stopped. Opponents have gone to court, arguing on environmental grounds that it's a bad place for a hospital because landing jets make so much noise.
So look at the beauty that was once there on this site that is out of sight, out of mind even. It was all there, of course, before the founders found the city. They had their exposition about the, taking credit of Panama Canal. Anyway.
And besides, it's near an earthquake.
Hospitals don't have
the issue was
windows
submitted
that
to the voters in
open.
1979.
In New Orleans today, there was a funeral for a hospital, one of several public health service hospitals around the country that have lost federal funding because of budget cuts. And in New Orleans style, it was a jazz funeral.
Tearing down a big old building. I hate this New Orleans funeral things. It's so gaudy.
Well, this was the week that a lot of federal programs were laid to rest or reduced, while more budget cuts have been requested by the White House. During Campaign 80, Bob McNamara paid several visits to Mansfield, Ohio, to see how candidate Ronald Reagan was doing with the critical blue-collar vote. Well, he went back this week to see how the blue-collar voters feel about President Reagan now.
I saw a funnel cloud driving through Mansfield, Ohio.
The big industry blue-collar Mansfield area gave
Nobody
Ronald
else
Reagan
really
almost
noticed
60% of its votes last November.
Big old funnel cloud sweeping over the city,
And this
nobody
week,
really
when CBS
looked
News
up and
polled more than
noticed it.
270 auto workers at Mansfield's General Motors plant, we found that 70% of those who said they voted for Mr. Reagan are still bullish on the president.
I think he's the best commander-in-chief we've had since Ike Eisenhower.
I think he's doing a good job so far myself.
Yet, when we asked not just the Reagan backers, but everybody to rate the
why
president's
are they polling
performance,
for the president
Mr. Reagan's
after
economic plans may have cost him support. Here, 47% said they didn't like the job the president was doing, while 39% approved. 13% were undecided.
I think it's too early to, say you done right or done wrong yet.
A lot of confusion over whether the president's done a good or bad job seems to lie in his proposed budget cuts.
So far, they're just confusing to me. I'm just standing, and wondering what's going to happen next.
Shit don't matter.
Already, Mansfield has gotten a taste of what the budget cuts may bring. The police department has lost 4 jail guards because the seated job training program was canceled.
Can't kidnap and lock people in cages.
A $7 million plan to modernize the sewage treatment system could be shelved if federal EPA money is cut off. And Mansfield's bus system could be in jeopardy if mass transit funds don't come through. But while it's true the president's spending cuts haven't cost the city of Mansfield much yet,
why don't you just put back the electric rails that were probably already in Mansfield back in the day?
Many of the people we polled do not take the president at his word.
What he's going to do for us is what he's going to take from us.
Wow.
And give to the wealthy people.
I've been paying this thing for 45 years now, or 50 years anyway. I think I'm entitled to get some of that back before I croak.
Still, Janet Coe has improved her opinion of Ronald Reagan since last year. And her husband, John, a lifelong Democrat, thinks better of the president, too. Last fall, as the Coes watched the Carter-Reagan debate on television, they were sold on Carter and voted for him. But now...
I'm not going to be a Reagan fan, but I think he's trying to do something, whether I agree with it or not.
Don't you see? It's a game of A or B when the answer is C.
Mansfield's unemployment lines have shortened slightly since Ronald Reagan's election, the unemployment rate dropping from 13% to 10%. But employment officials say there are more jobs now because of a seasonal trend, not because of a change in the White House. And in this big labor town, union members are not looking to Mr. Reagan to be much of a friend.
Like, they set it up so that, like, it's the dream, it's the
so the president is paying
goal,
a price.
it's
His
the
popularity
great
now appearing to soften more
prize
and more.
is to work in that shithole
workers who helped
factory.
elect him remain uncertain about
Those
whether his
people don't
budget
look
cuts
happy.
will threaten a chunk of
It's
their
not what you
paychecks.
want.
Bob McNamara, CBS News, Mansfield, Ohio.
When we tell you Michelin radials last and last...
Well, that's no surprise.
When we tell you Michelin radials save gas...
That's no surprise.
But when we tell you you can get Michelins for about
See
the
that
same
Michelin
price as
man?
other
That's what
leading
an
radials.
actual
Now that's a surprise.
astronaut would
But
look
it's
like
true.
in a
We're
space
America's
suit.
fastest growing tire company. We make the
It
tire
would
you
balloon
need
up,
at a
except
price
he would
you
have
can
his
afford.
arms
See
splayed
your
out like a
Michelin dealer and
starfish,
prices
and
set
he
for
would
your
not
car.
be able to
You'll
move.
be pleasantly surprised. Michelin. We put America on radials.
Oh, that soup must really hit the spot. It does more than that.
Soup. People don't eat soup much anymore, but it's really good, and you don't get fat. You can have a nice meal. You get hydrated, nutrients. It is good, and I love soup, and it keeps me slim, man.
Soup is good food.
It's true.
President Reagan's plan to halt illegal Haitian immigrants on the high seas is stirring up a lot of controversy, and much of it is in this country. A report tonight from Eric Ingberg.
The Haitians fleeing what one federal judge termed the most repressive regime in the hemisphere are perhaps 2% of the illegal immigrants to America. But Florida, where most come ashore, sees them as such a burden that the state's Governor Bob Graham was in Haiti this week, seeking the cooperation of dictator Jean-Claude Duvalier in stemming the flow. Graham also saw some of the poverty which has caused 1,000 Haitians a month to come to the U.S. Now, as a symbol of its Get Tough policy on illegal immigration, the Reagan administration is sending the Coast Guard to the coast of Haiti to turn back Haitians headed here. Under an agreement with the Duvalier government, one Coast Guard ship will be sent. Enough, backers of the plan say, to send a signal to Haiti
I've been looking at the Bahama Islands
voters.
lately.
Every congressman in this place, when he
Because
goes home,
Abaco
is met
Island,
by
where
people
Dorian
who say,
hit.
what are you boobs going to do? When are you going to get off your can and do something about illegal immigration And people who take my job
and Dorian
and took
and
my kids'
Abaco
job.
Island
The
is
administration extracted a pledge from
is
Duvalier that those
the
turned
furthest
back will not
north,
be
and
punished.
it's probably the
That is
best
crucial
vantage
because
point to
federal
see
courts
the
have blocked
fake
past attempts to deportations.
rockets from
On the ground, they face prison or
Cape
worse if they
Carnival.
return. Under U.S.
Kennedy's
laws and treaty
space
obligations,
fake
the Coast
center,
Guard will still not be able to
dumping
turn
into
back
the
Haitians
ocean
who ask
with
for
a
political
Nikon
asylum.
P1000.
But Haitian rights advocates doubt the proceedings can be fair.
It appears that this practice violates domestic laws, which provide, for example, that people seeking asylum have a right to a full and fair opportunity to prove that they would be persecuted upon return. Certainly that cannot be accomplished on board a Coast Guard cutter in the middle of the Caribbean.
Congressional supporters of the Coast Guard complain it is already suffering from budget cuts and will be further overtaxed. They note the first cutter assigned to the operation, the Hamilton, has a history of engine problems caused by lack of maintenance funds. The administration expects legal challenges to the program, which was not approved by Congress, and will claim the
cops were already
president has
wearing
broad
black.
powers to halt illegal immigration, even
I
on
thought
the
they
high
wore
seas.
blue back
Eric
in the
Engberg,
early
CBS
80s,
News,
but
Washington.
That's not. They're already
Jazz singer and pianist Hazel Scott has died of
getting
cancer in a
evil,
New York
yeah.
hospital. She was 61.
Cancer.
Britain's Prince Charles is finding
She
married
didn't
life
have
more
to.
expensive than his bachelor days, so he's granting himself a 50% tax-free raise from the $1 million a year income he gets from the farms he inherited in the Duchy of Cornwall. Charles has been keeping half the money and turning the rest over to the Treasury. Now he'll keep 3/4 of it.
Whoop-de-doo.
That's Jane Russell,
that's so you could give money
starlet,
to
full-figured then and full-figured now.
full-figured.
And today we gals know how to keep our full figures looking pretty. Under the smoothest fashions, try the Playtex 18-hour seamless bra. Not a seam showing
Jane
to spoil the smooth
Mansfield,
look.
Marilyn
and the unique
Monroe,
fabric
never
that
was
stretches for real
full-figured. She
support,
wasn't.
real comfort
She
in the
didn't
18-hour
have
bra
those
makes 18-hour
heavy
girdles
set
control
measurements.
comfortably. Try Playtex 18-hour bras and girdles. Full
That's
figures never
that's
look
full-figured back in 1981. That
The
is
United States Postal Service handles 300
that's
million
what people
pieces
thought
of
was
mail a
fat.
day.
There's a
Well,
Mudflooder
that's their
boy.
job. But that doesn't mean you have to put your important business letter into that.
Look at the doorway.
Now you have an alternative. Introducing the Federal Express overnight letter. It costs only $9.50
Oh,
when you
wow,
drop it off,
that's when
and
that
it gets
was
delivered practically
new.
any place in the country overnight. Absolutely, positively.
Big empty.
The American doubles team of John McEnroe and
midget
Peter
walking
Fleming
into
won
big
their
empty
tennis match
dead
against
cities,
Australia today to put the United States in the Davis Cup finals against Argentina. Well, maybe this summer's baseball strike had something
Wow,
to
they
do with
did
it, but a
sports
CBS
on the
News New
evening
York
news.
Times poll taken last week suggests that football has taken over as the national pastime.
Yeah, it has.
48%
Yeah,
said
that
they'd rather
hasn't
watch an
changed.
important football game than a baseball game. Only 31% said they'd
There's
pick
more
baseball.
occult ritualism
Even more
in
surprising,
football.
American football is making inroads in Europe, where until now football has always meant what we call soccer. Richard Wagner has that story.
We beat people just playing clean football. All right? Yeah. So, let me have 10 seconds. Quiet. Just quiet.
What does that have
The
to do
coach's
with
pregame
football?
pep talk is right there with the flag, mom, and apple pie. But this isn't America.
man.
It's Solingen, West Germany. And until recently, for most of these players, football meant short pants and a round ball. But American football is gaining a toehold in Europe.
Okay. Everybody ready?
Let's get
The
CTE
German
and get our
American
heads
Football League
bashed.
began a year and a half ago. There are 14 teams in the league. This game matches the Cologne Crocodiles against the Solingen Steelers.
Guy on my road,
We have gone from
he was
crowds of
offered.
100
He was
to
a quarterback.
150 up to crowds of 7,000 to 8,000 people.
Currently,
NCAA
rules permit 5 Americans on the
championship
field at any one
game-winning.
time. Next year, that number will be cut to just 3. Most of the Americans are U.S. servicemen. The coach of
Quarterback,
the Cologne
and,
Crocodiles,
he was
one of the
offered,
league's powers, says his German players are coming
a
on
job
fast.
over in, I think, the Frankfurt Galaxy, and it was like $350,000 a year, all expenses paid, housing, everything, room and board.
I mean, it's a contact sport, and everybody knows that. American football.
He turned it down.
I think it's hard. If we
I
play it
think he
right, it's fair.
regretted doing that.
And it's a sport for men.
It's a very physical game, a lot of hitting. Do you like that?
I like hitting and I like contact. It's the only sport I enjoy.
The Crocodiles quarterback, American Chris Williams, says all kinds of Germans are discovering American football.
We've got world-class athletes. We've got judo champions, motocross champions, handball players. They just come from all walks of life, and they really like to play the game. So you've got the basis and a good start for any football team.
The Solingen Steelers are still looking for a permanent stadium, and this game drew just a few hundred spectators. But the small crowd had no effect on the players' enthusiasm. There was even a fight.
Chronic.
At the end, the Crocodiles prevailed and went into the playoffs. For the Steelers, it's all over till next year.
Good game, man.
The Germans still have some things to learn. The marching band showed up at the victory party instead of at halftime. The National Football League doesn't really have to send scouts over here anytime soon.
They're still learning the ritual.
Post-game parties, the Crocodiles are close to all pro. Richard Wagner, CBS News, Cologne.
That's the news. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News.
That's not news.
Good night.
That was it?
It was a mystery to us how she could live in these practical times, yet still retain a certain sense of style and flair. Her 1982 Cutlass Supreme, for example. Her roomy, comfortable Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. How were we to know that that Cutlass was really a reflection of her practical
21
side?
miles per gallon.
It certainly didn't show, but she knew. Even today, there's still room to do it with
I got
style.
30 highway. But is that a brown piece of crap?
Now almost everybody's heard about the incredible Black & Decker Workmate. About how it makes almost any hard job a lot easier. Like planing, hammering, sawing, almost anything. But what most people don't know about the incredible Workmate is now you can get a single height model for as little as $50.
Wow.
Kind of makes it hard to hear
Black
him
&
with
Decker
the
Workmate
power
for about
tools running.
$50. That's really incredible.
Always a
From
glow.
around the world and from our newsroom in Washington,
Always.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer.
They still use
In the
Roman
booth, the
numerals
best
for the
announcers.
year.
On the field, the
Mad.
most exciting coverage. Plus, the most complete pregame and halftime reports. Sundays, more people are watching the NFL on CBS Sports. This is CBS.
That's what you do. CBS.
From the time the first settlers stepped on this shore, he felt the need to create shelter, to protect himself from Indians, the harsh elements.
Oh, nonsense, man. Okay, that's all there is to that. Okay, so now I thought I'd share this comment I wrote. I just copied and pasted it. It'll go in my book, maybe the second book, but give you a taste of what the book will be like. But anyway, I was watching Quantum of Conscience, and Matt was talking about like how can all this stuff be covered up, like the mystery history, and all the ancient architecture, the origins, and all that stuff. Like how could it all be covered up? And so, he's like, you can't tell me that like regular people are going around in this big conspiracy covering it up. That's why people think conspiracy theorists are nuts. And in that sense, it's not realistic that a bunch of people are walking around knowingly covering this stuff up. So my answer was, in my opinion, it's covered up by wizards, warlocks, witches, and various dark arts of wicked sorcery. The elite controllers infuse lesser magic into the very essence of major things that matter, encoding occult numbers, pyramids, creepy eyes like the CBS logo, chants, sacrifice, globes, spinning globes, into all kinds of shite. They make almost everything into a magic ritual. Monday Night Football is a ritual. People scream and yell about knocking each other around to move a pigskin across a white line. People are blind to fires burning 2,000 degrees hotter than is even possible, and don't bat an eye when a guy wearing a fake mustache goes on in the news as an expert and says, "Nobody anywhere would have ever expected this because it's completely unprecedented. But here we go again." Yeah. The Goyim are enchanted So here I'm talking about like the different people, the different levels, you know, from lowest to highest as far as all this deception goes, you know. I didn't include the people awake because we're outside of that. But Goyim, the Goyim are spellbound. They're enchanted. They're the villagers from some fairy tale, okay? That's most people watching the news and believing it 100%. And then you have like the guy who goes on the news wearing a fake mustache and glasses, playing the expert from some think tank, explaining away stuff that doesn't make sense. He probably doesn't even really know what he's doing. He does know he gets easy money and he doesn't give a shit and cares not about fooling the goys. He's a goon for the low-level controllers. Who are the low-level controllers? Why, let me tell you. Low-level controllers are, in my opinion, possessed by demons or vril or the bug things that, like from the Wrath of Khan, the Star Trek movie, or whatever it is that controls them. Some people think it's like a little thing that goes into their left eye and they have the left eye bruise and whatever, you know. They are the creeps participating in the occult rituals. They're the ones that maintain the control via the spell casting. You know, and a lot of that spell casting is done on them. They don't understand the rituals, but they do participate and they do the ritualistic stuff, you know, feeding off the energy of it somehow. They orchestrate things like the world's fairs, the broadcast programming, 9/11, fake news, fake shootings, etc. They do it successfully day after day, and they are steeped into the rituals that are sufficiently infused via numerology, symbolism, etc. So then, beyond them, I made a special place for George W. Bush. That's where he's at, you know, because he's kind of, you know, a very high level, right? But then also he's always playing a role, you know, he's out there acting. So he's not at the highest level, no way. There are higher level ones than that. Now, the higher level ones, here we go. The higher level ones are those that willingly commune with the intelligences that possess all, you know, the lower level ones. Not all people, just that tier of controllers, the lower level controllers. The higher level controllers, those are the witches, the wizards, etc. They don't waste energy going on TV, wearing a big target on their chest and talking the nonsense like George W. Bush. They make others do that for them. Now, these people, I believe, are hidden in plain sight. They appear unexpectedly average. They seem to be lower level staff. But if you look closely, you'll see them. They're the handlers. They're part of the entourage, the bodyguards, the makeup artists, speech writers. They're the ones that stand behind the governors, seemingly for no reason. They stand behind the president. It could be the first lady. I think oftentimes that it could be the VP. It's never the president supposedly in charge. Not in my mind. So these are the ones, you know, like Grima Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. They're the ones whispering in the ear of the so-called ruler. or they're the Sarumans with the crystal ball, some distance, controlling somebody from some faraway distance. They're the ones who are keeping it weird. They keep it so detached from true reality in order to not be found out, beheaded, burnt at the stake, or whatever for the shit they do in secret. And that is my opinion. But that was just an answer to a question of like, who's doing this? Who are the controllers? How is it happening? Is it the programmer of the Matrix or whatever? And so this is where I'm at now. My opinion changes, my viewpoint changes, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think it's oddly enough, I think it's, to me, one of the more plausible explanations that there is for all this weirdness that we see and things that don't make sense. And let me give you an example. I'm going to pull up an article that Matt showed on his channel from Wikipedia about the Philadelphia City Hall. So the City Hall, it was the tallest habitable building in the world. In the world. In the world. From 1894 to 1908, measuring 167 meters, or 548 feet tall, to the top of the statue of William Penn, or whoever. Now it's only the 16th tallest building in Pennsylvania. But it was the tallest building in the world in 1908. Wow. The tallest statue on top of any building in the world is the 37-foot tall, 11-meter tall statue of William Penn. Approximately 88 has to be 88 million bricks and several thousand tons of stone were used in its construction. 4 bronze eagles, each weighing 3 tons, with 12-foot wingspans, perched above the towers. I mean, come on. It was constructed from 1871, and the interior was finished in 1901. 1901 it was finished. Those people didn't even know who William Penn... They didn't know what he looked like, did they? I don't know. Designed the building in the Second Empire style. City Hall is a masonry building whose weight is borne by granite and brick walls up to 22 feet thick, 6.7 meters. The principal exterior materials are limestone, granite, and marble. The final construction cost was $24 million. It's 548 feet tall. I just can't wrap my head around that, It was the tallest in Philadelphia until 86, whatever. In 1976, it was designated as a National Historic Landmark. Only in 1976, did they, somebody, they put their thumb and forefinger on their chin and rubbed it, gently rubbed their chin, looking at it, probably with like horn-rimmed glasses and, an artist like a Salvador Dali mustache, probably with a black beret on, their head tilted, looking at it in 1976, and then their eyes widened suddenly a little bit. This building's historic. I say, Lloyd. Yes, Frederick. It dawned on me this building is historic. It was designed to be the world's tallest building until it was surpassed during construction. Wait. Oh, it was surpassed during construction by the Washington Monument and the Eiffel Tower, but they're not habitable. Although the Eiffel Tower has an apartment at the top. Whatever that's for. It was the first secular building. Secular. To have this distinction, as all previous world's tallest buildings were religious structures, including European cathedrals, and for the previous 3,800 years, because it doesn't go back farther than that, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Is that where the word geezer comes from? With almost 700 rooms. City Hall is the largest municipal building in the United States and one of the largest in the world. In the world. The building houses 3 branches of government. The city's executive branch and the the mayor's office. I'm gonna be mayor. So it has an observation deck 500 feet above street level. 500 feet. That's something. I mean, that's some shit. Think about that. And it just had a chain link fence around it because it wasn't really designed to be that. But now it's glassed in. And you can see the iron superstructure. Yeah. The tower has been simplified. Huge garlands that festoon the top panels of the tower were removed. Now get this. Now this is what this is all about. Buckle your seatbelts. Have you seen the pictures? Have you heard about this building? Now get this. In the 1950s, the city council investigated tearing down City Hall for a new building elsewhere. They found, tearing down City Hall for a new building elsewhere. Tearing it down. They investigated tearing it down. The proper reaction, I think, is to do this thing where you slap your hands down across your face like you're trying to smooth your nose down into your chest, just like smacking your face as you do it, like with big winding, like a windmill, reverse windmill motion. Slap, 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 slap. And then you suddenly stop. And then you look down and then you look up at the person who said it. And as you're looking up, you shake your head back and forth and you go, ba-ba-ba. And then you just stare at them, frozen with your mouth open really wide. And you just wait. And it gets awkward and you continue to wait. For comedic effect, you just hold that an uncomfortably really long time. And finally, when they can't take it anymore and they're fumbling around, then you just do another ba. That's the proper reaction to this statement. In the 1950s, the city council investigated tearing down City Hall for a new building elsewhere. Okay, keep in mind it was built by people with like horses and wagons who spent most of their day darning their socks and threshing wheat by hand. and sweeping out stovepipes by hand, and all, just all this kind of stuff. Like raking the dirt in the street, and shoveling up the horse poop, and weaving rope by hand and stuff like that. Anyway, so they built it, no problem. They found that the demolition that they wanted to do, because they wanted to demolish that building. They didn't know it was historic yet. They found that the demolition would have bankrupted the city due to the building's masonry construction. The demolition would have bankrupted the city. The demolition of it that they wanted to do, constructing it had no effect on the city's finances. The $21 million or whatever they say it cost, which is ridiculous. You couldn't. All they did. Oh, okay. Well, maybe they spent $21 million to put the roof on it, because that's all they did. All they ever did was put the roof on it. That's probably why they wanted to demolish it, because they looked at the cost of maintaining the crappy roof they put on it. Yeah. So that's why I said there has to be black magic. How can you have a statement like that? You have to be spellbound. You have to be enchanted to read that statement that they wanted to demolish it, but then they couldn't because it would have bankrupted the city. To read that and accept that, you're enchanted, my friend. But we are not enchanted. We are not enchanted, my friend. Yep. So, all right. This video is done. I have to go back into the world of the spellbound.